I was sitting at my kitchen table paying bills when my son Derek walked in without knocking. He never knocked anymore, just walked into my house like he owned it, like the woman who had given birth to him, who had raised him alone, who had sacrificed. Everything for him didn't deserve even that basic courtesy. "Mom, I need $10,000, he said, not, "Hello," not, "How are you?" Not even a greeting, just a demand for money, like I was an ATM machine and not his mother. $10,000, I repeated, setting down my pen. "What do you need $10,000 for?" "Does it matter?" he said, irritation already creeping into his voice. "I need it, that's all you need to know." I looked at my son. Really, looked at him. He was 38 years old, tall and well-built, with my late husband's strong features and my dark brown eyes. But there was something hard in his face, something entitled and cold that I didn't recognize, didn't want to recognize. "Yes, it matters," I said calmly. "I work hard. For my money, Derek, I deserve to know what you're planning to use it for." "Here we go," he said, rolling his eyes. "The guilt trip, the lecture about how hard you worked, how much you sacrificed, like I asked to be born, like I owe you something for. Doing the bare minimum of raising your own child." Those words hit me like a physical blow. The bare minimum. I had worked 3 jobs after his father died. I had given up everything, my education, my career, my social life, my chance at happiness, all, to give Derek everything he needed, and he thought that was the bare minimum. "You don't think you owe me anything?" I asked quietly. "For real, Mom?" "No, I don't owe you anything," Derek said, crossing his arms. "You chose to have me. You chose to keep me after Dad died. Those were your choices, not mine. I didn't ask for any of it, so no, I don't owe you a damn thing. What I do deserve is help from my mother when I need it. That's what parents are supposed to do. They're supposed to help their kids, not hold it over their heads like some kind of debt." I sat there looking at my son, the boy I had loved more than life itself, the baby I had held in my arms and promised to protect and provide for no matter what the cost, and I realized with crystal clarity that I had failed, not in raising him, not in providing for him, but in teaching him gratitude, in teaching him that love isn't a one-way street, that family isn't just about what you can take, but also about what you give. "I see," I said. And I smiled. I smiled because in that moment, I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. "So you don't think you owe me anything?" "No, Mom, I don't," Derek said firmly. "Good," I said, still smiling. "Then you'll understand when I don't give you the $10,000. His face changed, went from confident to shocked to angry in seconds. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely serious," I said. "If you don't owe me anything, then I don't owe you anything either. Seems fair, doesn't it?" "That's not the same thing," Derek sputtered. "You're my mother, you're supposed to help me. And you're my son." I replied, "You're supposed to respect me, appreciate me, maybe even love me. But apparently those things aren't important to you, so why should your financial needs be important to me?" "You're unbelievable," Derek said, his voice rising. "I come to you for help one time." "One time," I interrupted. "Derek, this is the 4th time this year you've asked me for money, not counting. All the other times you've needed help with rent or car payments or credit card debt. This isn't one time, this is a pattern. Whatever," Derek said, heading for the door. "Keep your money. I'll figure it out myself like I always do." "Derek, wait," I called out. But he was already gone, already slamming my door, already leaving without another word, without any acknowledgement that maybe he had been wrong. And I sat there in my kitchen in the house I had bought with my own hard-earned money, and I cried. I cried for the little boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mommy in the world. I cried for the teenager who used to come to me with his problems, who trusted me, who valued my advice. I cried for the relationship we used to have before money and entitlement and his father's death and everything else got in the way, and I cried because I knew what I was going to do. Knew it was going to hurt, knew it was necessary, but that didn't make it any easier. My name is Mary Catherine Jenkins. I'm 62 years old, and I raised my son Derek alone from the time he was 8 years old when my husband Thomas died in a construction accident. I worked as a nurse, pulling double shifts, working holidays, sacrificing sleep and health and any chance at a personal life to make sure Derek had everything he needed: a good home, good schools, good clothes, good food, college tuition, a car when he turned 16, help with his first apartment security deposit, everything. And somewhere along the way, Derek learned to expect these things, learned to take them for granted, learned that his mother would always be there with her checkbook and her willingness to sacrifice, and he never learned to be grateful, never learned to appreciate, never learned that love is supposed to be reciprocal, that relationships require give and take, not just take. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Let me tell you how we got here. How a mother who loved her son more than anything in the world ended up writing him out of her will. Let me tell you the whole story, because it's not just about the money. It's about respect and gratitude and understanding that your parents are people too. People who deserve to be valued, not just used. Thomas died on a Tuesday. It was raining, one of those cold November rains that chills you to the bone. He was working on a high-rise downtown part of a crew building, what would become Atlanta's newest skyscraper. The scaffolding gave way. No one's fault, just a freak accident, just the universe deciding that my husband, my partner, my love didn't get to grow old with me, didn't get to see his son graduate high school or college, didn't get to walk his future, grandchildren didn't get anything but a coffin and a funeral and a widow's pension that barely covered the mortgage. I was 30 years old with an 8-year-old son and no idea how I was going to survive, how I was going to provide, how I was going to be both mother and father to a boy who had just lost his hero, but I did it. I went back to school, got my nursing degree, worked every shift I could get. I worked days. I worked nights. I worked weekends and holidays. I worked when I was sick, when I was exhausted, when every bone in my body ached, and all I wanted to do was sleep. I worked because Derek needed shoes and school supplies and a roof over his head. I worked because that's what mothers do, that's what parents do. They sacrifice, they endure, they do whatever it takes. And I never complained, never made Derek feel guilty, never told him about the times I went without food so he could have seconds, never told him about the promotion I turned down because it would have meant less time with him, never told him about the man I could have loved, the man who wanted to marry me, who would have been a good stepfather. But I said no because I didn't want to confuse Derek, didn't want to replace Thomas, didn't want anything that might make Derek's life harder. I never told him any of that because I didn't want him to feel like a burden, didn't want him to feel guilty for existing, for being a child. And Derek was a good kid, at least I thought he was. He did well in school, played sports, had friends. He was respectful most of the time, said please and thank you, helped around the house. He wasn't perfect, no kid is. But he was good, he was mine. And I loved him more than I loved anything else in this world. I would have died for him, would have done anything for him, and I thought he knew that. Thought he understood how much he meant to me, how much I had given up, how much I had sacrificed. But looking back now, I realize he didn't know, because I never told him. I never wanted him to feel guilty. So I never explained. I never showed him the bills I paid or the budget. I carefully managed. I never let him see me cry when I was overwhelmed or scared. I protected him from all of that, and in doing so, I never taught him to appreciate it. High school was good. Derek played football, made the varsity team junior year, was popular, had a girlfriend named Ashley, who I liked, who was sweet and respectful, who I thought might be the one. But they broke up senior year, and Derek took it hard, took it so hard. He almost didn't graduate, almost threw away everything he had worked for over a girl. I talked to him, convinced him to focus on his future, convinced him that there would be other girls, other chances, that high school heartbreak wasn't the end of the world. And he listened. He graduated. He got accepted to Georgia State University. Not his first choice, but a good school. A solid school. And I was so proud, so relieved that all my hard work had paid off, that my son was going to college, was going to have opportunities I never had, was going to make something of himself. College was expensive, even with Derek living at home, even with financial aid and scholarships. There were still tuition costs, books, fees, supplies, and Derek wanted to have the full college experience, wanted to join a fraternity, wanted to go to parties, wanted to have a social life. And I understood that I did. I wanted him to have fun, to make memories, to not spend all his time working and studying like I had. So I picked up extra shifts, worked more overtime, pulled from my meager savings to make sure Derek had spending money, had gas money, had money for dates and fraternity dues and spring break trips, and I told myself it was worth it. Told myself that Derek would graduate and get a good job and be successful and happy, and that's all that mattered. That's all I wanted. But something changed during college. Derek became different, became more focused on money, on status, on impressing his fraternity brothers and their wealthy families. He started talking about brand names, about expensive clothes and cars and vacations. He started bringing home friends whose parents were doctors and lawyers and business owners. And I could see him comparing, could see him being embarrassed of our small house of my old car, of the fact that I was a nurse and not something more prestigious. And it hurt. It hurt to see my son ashamed of me, ashamed of where he came from, ashamed of the sacrifices I had made. But I told myself it was just a phase, told myself he was young and trying to find himself, and he would grow out of it. He didn't grow out of it. He graduated college with a business degree, got a job at a marketing firm, making decent money. Not great, but decent enough to support himself, enough to get his own apartment, enough to start building a life. And I was so proud, so relieved that he was independent, that my job as his primary provider was done, that we could transition into a new phase of our relationship, adult to adult, mother to grown son. And I looked forward to that, looked forward to having a relationship with Derek that wasn't about me giving and him taking, but about mutual respect and love and appreciation. I was naive. I was so naive. The first time Derek asked me for money after college, he said it was an emergency, said his car had broken down, and he needed $2,000 for repairs right away, or he'd lose his job because he wouldn't be able to get to work. I gave it to him. Of course, I gave it to him because that's what I did. That's who I was. I dipped into my retirement savings, pulled out $2,000, handed it to my son, and said, "Don't worry about paying me back. Just focus on your job. Focus on your future." Derek took the money, said thank you, said he appreciated it, said he'd pay me back when he could. He never paid me back, never mentioned it again, and when I brought it up months later, he got defensive, said I had told him not to worry about it, said he thought it was a gift, not a loan. And I let it go, because I didn't want to fight, didn't want to damage our relationship over money, but it didn't stop there 6 months later. Derek needed money for a security deposit on a new apartment, a better apartment, in a better neighborhood, because his marketing career was taking off and he needed to live somewhere. That reflected his success. He needed $3,000. I gave it to him again, pulled from my retirement. Again and again. He said he'd pay me back again. He never did. A year after that. Derek needed money because he had credit card debt. He had been living beyond his means, trying to keep up with his coworkers and their expensive lifestyles, and now he owed $15,000, and the interest was killing him. Could I help him just this once, just a loan, just until he got his next bonus? $15,000. That was more than I made in 6 months of working full-time. That was a significant chunk of my retirement savings. But Derek was my son, and he was in trouble, and what kind of mother would I be if I didn't help him? So I did. I took out $15,000 from my retirement account. I paid off his credit cards, and I told him, "Derek, you have to be more responsible. You have to live within your means. You can't keep doing this. I won't always be able to help you." And Derek nodded, said he understood, said he had learned his lesson, Said this was the last time he would need help. Said he was going to change. Said he was going to be better. He wasn't better. He didn't change. If anything, he got worse over the next 10 years. Derek asked me for money dozens of times, always for emergencies, always with promises to pay me back, always with assurances that this was the last time he'd need help, and I kept giving, kept sacrificing, kept pulling from my retirement. Savings that I had worked so hard to build, the savings that was supposed to ensure I didn't spend my old age in poverty or become a burden on my children, on Derek. And with each withdrawal, with each check I wrote, with each transfer I made, I felt a growing resentment, a slow-burning anger that I tried to suppress, tried to ignore, because he was my son, and I loved him. And that's what mothers do, right? They give and give and give until there's nothing left. But it wasn't just the money, it was the lack of appreciation, the lack of respect. Derek stopped calling unless he needed something, stopped visiting unless it was convenient for him, stopped acknowledging holidays or my birthday or even Mother's Day, unless I reminded him. And even then it was perfunctory, obligatory, like he was checking a box on a list, not like he actually cared about me as a person, as his mother, as the woman who had given up everything for him. And when I tried to talk to him about it, tried to tell him, I felt taken for granted. He would get angry, would say I was guilt-tripping him, would say I was being manipulative, would say that's just what mothers do. They help their children, and if I couldn't do that without making him feel bad, then maybe I shouldn't help at all. And those words, that threat, that maybe I shouldn't help at all, it was effective. It kept me quiet, kept me giving, kept me sacrificing. Because I was terrified that if I stopped, if I said no, if I drew boundaries, Derek would cut me off completely, would remove me from his life, would leave me alone with nothing but my regrets and my depleted bank account and the knowledge that I had failed as a mother, and I couldn't bear that, couldn't bear the thought of losing my son. Even though somewhere deep down I knew I had already lost him, had lost him years ago to entitlement and selfishness and a complete inability to see anyone's needs but his own. Which brings me back to that day in my kitchen 3 months ago, when Derek demanded $10,000, told me he didn't owe me anything, told me I had done the bare minimum and shouldn't expect gratitude for basic parenting, and I smiled and made my decision, the decision that would change everything after. Derek left after he slammed the door and peeled out of my driveway in his expensive car that I had helped him buy. I sat there for a long time, just thinking about my life, about my choices, about the fact that I was 62 years old and had almost nothing in my retirement account, had almost nothing to show for 40 years of hard work, except a son who thought I owed him everything, and he owed me nothing. I called my lawyer. His name is James Morrison, and he had handled Thomas's estate when he died, had helped me with various legal matters over the years. James, I said, when he answered, I need to update my will. Of course, Mary, he said, when would you like to come in? Tomorrow, if possible, I said, this is important. Is everything okay? He asked, concern in his voice. Everything's fine, I lied. I just need to make some changes. The next day, I went to James's office downtown, a nice office in a professional building, nothing fancy but respectable, solid, and I told him what I wanted. I want to leave everything to charity, I said, everything except a token amount for Derek. James looked at me over his glasses. Mary, are you sure that's what you want? Derek is your only child, your only heir. I'm sure, I said. Derek made it very clear that he doesn't think he owes me anything, that I was just doing my basic duty as a parent by raising him, so I'm treating his inheritance the same way, just doing my basic duty by leaving him something, but not everything. Not what he expects, not what he thinks he deserves. How much were you thinking of leaving him? James asked. $1, I said, and James's eyes widened. $1. Mary, that's symbolic. That's a statement. Exactly, I said. That's exactly what it is. It's a statement that I heard, what he said, that I'm taking him at his word, that if he doesn't owe me anything, then I don't owe him anything, not even an inheritance. Have you thought about the consequences? James asked gently. Have you considered how Derek will react when he finds out? Oh, he won't find out until I'm dead, I said. I'm not telling him. I'm not using this as leverage or a threat. I'm simply making sure that my assets go where they'll be appreciated to people and organizations that will value them, not to someone who spent the last 10 years taking me for granted. And the rest of your estate, James asked, where would you like it to go? I had thought about this, had spent hours researching charities, organizations' causes that mattered to me. I want 50% to go to a scholarship fund for children of single parents. I said, kids whose mothers or fathers are working multiple jobs, trying to give them opportunities, I want to help those. Kids go to college without their parents having to sacrifice everything. That's beautiful, Mary, James said, making notes. And the other 50%. I want it split between several charities, I said, organizations that help widows support, groups for people who've lost spouses, programs that provide assistance to struggling families, all the people who understand what it's like to work hard, to sacrifice, to do your best, and still feel like it's not enough. James looked at me for a long moment. Mary, I have to ask, are you doing this because you're angry? Because if you are, might I suggest waiting, cooling off, thinking about this decision? I'm not angry, James, I said, and it was true. I wasn't angry. I was sad. I was disappointed. I was heartbroken, but I wasn't angry. I'm just done. I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done sacrificing for someone who doesn't appreciate it. I'm done hoping Derek will change, will wake up one day and realize what? He's lost. I'm accepting reality and acting accordingly. All right, James said. If you're sure, then let's get this done. We spent the next 2 hours going over every detail of my new will. James drafted it, I reviewed it, I signed it. He had it witnessed and notarized, and just like that, it was done. My entire estate, everything I had worked for, everything I had saved, everything I owned would go to charity, and Derek would get exactly what he said he deserved, exactly what he said. He owed me nothing. Didn't tell Derek what I had done, didn't call him, didn't send an email, didn't hint at it in any way. I just went on with my life. Went to work, paid my bills, spent time with my friends from church and the hospital, and I waited to see if Derek would call, would visit, would apologize, would show any sign that he regretted what he had said, would show any indication that he valued me as more than just a source of money. Weeks went by, nothing. A month, nothing. 2 months, nothing, and I realized this was it. This was our relationship now. Silence and distance, and the absence of anything that resembled love or respect or basic human decency. And then my phone rang. It was Derek. Mom. Hey, he said, his voice casual, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't demanded money and insulted me and stormed out of my house 3 months ago. Hi, Derek, I said, keeping my voice neutral. How are you? I'm good. Yeah, really good. Actually, hey, listen, I know it's been a while since we talked, but I wanted to reach out because there's something I need to discuss with you. Here it was, another request for money, another emergency, another crisis that only I could solve with my checkbook. What is it? I asked. So you know how I've been working really hard at the firm, right? Well, I got a promotion, actually more like a lateral move with a pay increase. But it's good. It's really good. And part of this new position is that I need to relocate to Charlotte. They're opening a new office there, and they want me to head up the marketing department. That's wonderful, Derek, I said, and part of me meant it. Part of me was proud that my son was advancing in his career, was being recognized for his work. Congratulations. Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited about it. But here's the thing. The company is giving me a relocation package, but it's not quite enough to cover everything. Moving costs, security deposit on a new place in Charlotte first, and last month's rent, utilities. Set up all of that, and I'm a little short, so I was hoping you could help me out. Just $5,000, and I promise, Mom, I promise I'll pay you back this time. I really will. $5,000, another $5,000 on top of all the money I had already given. Him that he had never paid back on top of the lack of appreciation, the lack of respect, the insistence that he didn't owe me anything. Derek, I said slowly. Do you remember the last time you were at my house? Yeah, I guess it's been a while. Hasn't it? He said, not even acknowledging what had happened, not even remembering, apparently. Do you remember what you said to me? I asked. There was a pause. Not specifically why. You told me you didn't owe me anything, I said. You told me that. I was just doing my basic duty as a parent by raising you, and that I shouldn't expect gratitude or feel like you owed me anything for it. Another pause longer this time. Oh yeah, I was frustrated, Mom. I didn't mean that's not. I was just upset. Were you upset, or were you honest? I asked. Because it seemed to me like you meant every word. Come on, Mom. Don't be like that. I said I'm sorry. No, Derek, you didn't, I said. You didn't say you were sorry, you didn't apologize, you didn't. Call me for 3 months and now you're back asking for more money. I need help, Mom, Derek said. And now there was irritation in his voice again, that familiar tone that said, how dare you make this difficult? How dare you not immediately give me what I want? Moving to Charlotte is a big opportunity for me, and I can't do it without help. Then ask someone else, I said. Ask your friends, ask your employer for an advance, ask a bank for a loan, but don't ask me. Are you serious right now? Derek said, his voice rising. You're my mother. Where else am I supposed to turn? I don't know, Derek, I said, but I know where you're not supposed to turn, and that's to someone you told doesn't deserve your gratitude, someone who sacrifices you, described as the bare minimum, someone who you said you don't owe anything. So that's it, Derek said. You're punishing me because I hurt your feelings, because I was honest about how I felt. No, Derek, I said. I'm not punishing you. I'm taking you at your word. If you don't owe me anything, then I don't owe you anything. It's that simple. This is unbelievable, Derek said. I can't believe you're being this petty, this vindictive over something I said when I was upset. I'm not being vindictive. Derek, I said, I'm being realistic. I'm accepting the relationship we have, not the one I wish we had. And the relationship we have is one where you take and I give, where you demand and I sacrifice, where you insult and I accept and I'm done with. That I'm done being your ATM. I'm done being someone you only call when you need something. I'm done being taken for granted. Fine, Derek said coldly. If that's how you want it, fine. I don't need your help. I don't need you. I'll figure it out on my own, like I always do. Good luck, Derek, I said, and I meant it. I hope Charlotte works out for you. He hung up without saying goodbye, without any acknowledgement that maybe he had been wrong, without any indication that he understood what he was losing, and I sat there in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this had all started 3 months ago, and I felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, no anger, just a calm acceptance that this was how it was going to be. Derek moved to Charlotte, 2 weeks. Later I know because he posted about it on social media, pictures of his new apartment, his new office, his excitement about his new position. He didn't call to tell me, he didn't invite me to see his new place, he didn't ask for my input or advice. He just left Atlanta, left me, left our relationship such as it was. And I was fine with that. I really was. I went on with my life, focused on my work, my friends, my hobbies. I started taking art classes, something I had always wanted to do, but never had time for. I started traveling, taking weekend trips to places I had always wanted to see. I started living for myself for the first time in my adult life, and it was liberating. 6 months after Derek moved to Charlotte, I got a call from his number. My heart jumped. I won't lie. I hoped maybe he was calling to apologize, to admit he had been wrong, to try to repair our relationship. I answered, "Hello." "Mary, this is Stephanie, Derek's girlfriend," a woman's voice said, and my heart sank. "Oh, hello, Stephanie," I said. "Is everything okay? Is Derek all right?" "He's fine, physically," she said. "But Mary, We need to talk about Derek's behavior, about how he treats people, about how he treats you." This was unexpected. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I mean, Derek has told me about your relationship, about how you raised him alone after his father died, about how you worked yourself to the bone to give him every opportunity, and about how he's treated you since he became an adult. And frankly, Mary, I'm appalled." "Derek told you all of that?" I asked, surprised. "He did." Stephanie said, "We've been together for 8 months, and at first he made it seem like you two weren't close, like you had a difficult relationship. But as I got to know him better, as I saw how he treated other people, how he talked about his friends and colleagues and family, I started asking more questions, and the truth came out." "What truth?" "That you've been financing his life for years, that you've given him tens of thousands of dollars, that you sacrificed your retirement, your security, your future to help him, and that he's never paid you back, never even thanked you, never showed you any appreciation." And Mary, when I confronted him about it, do you know what he said? "What did he say?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "He said you owed him, that it was your job as his mother, that he didn't ask to be born. So any hardship you endured raising him was your choice, not his responsibility." Hearing those words come from someone else, from this woman I had never met, made them somehow more painful, more real. "I see," I said. "Mary, I'm calling because I wanted you to know that I've left Derek. I can't be with someone who's so selfish, so entitled, so completely lacking in gratitude and compassion, and I wanted to apologize to you on his behalf, because he never will, and you deserve an apology, you deserve acknowledgement of everything you've done." "Thank you, Stephanie," I said, tears forming. "In my eyes, that means more than you know." "You're a good mother, Mary," Stephanie said. "A great mother, and Derek is a fool for not seeing that. I hope one day he realizes what he's lost." After we hung up, I sat there and cried for the son I had lost, cried for the man Derek had become, cried for all the years I had wasted hoping he would change, would appreciate me, would love me the way I loved him. But I also felt something else. I felt validated. Felt like maybe I wasn't crazy for being hurt, for feeling used, for deciding to leave him, nothing in my will. If this stranger, this woman who had only known Derek for 8 months, could see what kind of person he was, could see how he treated me, could recognize that it was wrong, then I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't being petty. I was being reasonable. I was protecting myself, and that was okay. That was necessary. That was what I should have done. Years ago, 2 years passed, 2 years of silence from Derek, 2 years of living my life on my own terms, 2 years of art classes and weekend trips and volunteer work at the hospital, 2 years of building relationships with people who appreciated me, who valued me, who saw me as more than just a source of money or help. 2 years of healing, of growing, of becoming the person I was before. I became so consumed with being Derek's mother, and they were good years. They really were. I was happier than I had been in decades, more at peace, more content, more comfortable in my own skin and my own choices. And then I got sick. It started with fatigue, which I attributed to age, to the long hours I worked, to the natural slowing down that comes in your 60s. But then came the shortness of breath, the dizziness, the chest pains. I went to my doctor, thinking maybe it was anemia, or stress, or something. Simple, something fixable. He ran tests, sent me to a cardiologist, more tests, more specialists. And finally, a diagnosis: congestive heart failure. My heart was failing, not immediately, not catastrophically, but progressively, irreversibly. "How long do I have?" I asked my cardiologist, Dr. Rodriguez, a kind woman, about Derek's age. "That's hard to say," she said gently. "With treatment, with medication, with lifestyle changes, you could have 5 years, maybe more. But Mary, I have to be honest with you, your heart has sustained significant damage, probably from years of stress and overwork. Your prognosis isn't great. 5 years, maybe more, maybe less. I was 64 years old, and I was dying. I called James Morrison. James, I need you to review my will, make sure everything is in order. Are you okay, Mary? He asked, concern evident in his voice. I'm fine. I lied. I just want to make sure all my affairs are in order, that there are no surprises for anyone when I'm gone. Has something happened with Derek? James asked. Have you reconsidered your decision? No, I said firmly. I haven't reconsidered. Derek has made his choices and I've made mine. I'm at peace with that. All right, James said. Your will is solid. Mary, everything is in order, but let me ask you this. Do you want to tell Derek about your condition, give him a chance to maybe reconcile? No, I said. If Derek wants a relationship with me, he knows where I am, he has my number, he knows how to reach me, but I'm not going to use my illness to manipulate him into caring about me. Either he cares or he doesn't. And it's clear he doesn't. I didn't tell Derek I was sick, didn't call, didn't write, didn't reach out in any way. I just continued with my life, continued working as long as I could, continued taking my medication, continued with my treatment, and I waited. I waited to see if Derek would call, would visit, would show any sign that he remembered. I existed and he didn't. 3 years passed. 3 years of Derek's silence. 3 years of my health, slowly declining. 3 years of me making peace with my choices, with my life, with the fact that I would die having lost my son, not to death, but to his own selfishness, his own inability to see beyond himself. And then one day, my phone rang. It was Derek. Mom, he said, and his voice sounded strange, strained. Derek, I said, surprised. It's been a while. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry about that. Things have been crazy with work. But listen, I need to talk to you about something. It's important. Here we go. Thought another request for money, another emergency, another demand. What is it? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. I'm getting married, he said, and I felt my heart clench. Her name is Jennifer. We've been together for about a year and we're getting married next month. Congratulations, I said, and I meant it, despite everything. Despite all the hurt and disappointment, I still wanted Derek to be happy. Thank you. He said, so the thing is, we're having a pretty big wedding. Jennifer comes from a wealthy family, and they're paying for most of it. But there are still some expenses that we need to cover. And I was wondering if you could contribute. Contribute how much? I asked already, knowing where this was going. Well, Jennifer's parents are covering the venue and the catering and most of the major expenses, but we still need to pay for the flowers and the photography and the band and some other things, and we're looking at about $20,000. $20,000. He hadn't called me in 3 years, hadn't checked on me, hadn't shown any interest in my life, and now he wanted $20,000 for his wedding. Derek, I can't give you $20,000. I said, why not? He asked, and there was that familiar irritation. That tone that said, how dare you refuse me? I know you have the money, Mom. You've always had money when I needed it. I don't have the money, Derek, I said, which was true. My medical bills had depleted most of my savings. And even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you. Are you still mad about that thing from years ago? Derek asked, incredulous. Are you still holding that grudge, Mom? It's my wedding. This is important. This is a milestone in my life, and you're going to let some petty argument keep you from being part of it. It wasn't a petty argument, Derek, I said. You told me you didn't owe me anything, that I was just doing the bare minimum by raising you, and you've spent the last 3 years proving that you meant it. You haven't called. You haven't visited. You haven't shown any interest in my life or my well-being, and now you want $20,000. I've been busy, Mom, Derek said defensively. I have a career, a life, my own responsibilities. I can't be expected to call you every week. I wasn't expecting every week, Derek, I said. I would have settled for once a year, for a card on my birthday, for any acknowledgement that you remember I exist. But you couldn't even do that. And now you want me to finance your wedding. This is ridiculous, Derek said, his voice rising. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. You're supposed to support me. That's what parents do. And what do children do? Derek, I asked, do they appreciate their parents? Do they respect them? Do they show gratitude? Do they maintain relationships not because they need something, but because they love someone, because you haven't done any of those things? Fine, Derek said coldly. Don't come to the wedding. Don't be part of my life. I don't need you. I've managed fine without you for the last 3 years. Have you? I asked quietly. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you need me every time you want money. Every time you have a crisis, you need me, Derek. You need my help, my support, my resources, but you don't want me. You don't want a relationship. You don't want to put in the work that comes with having a mother. You just want what I can give you, and I'm done with that. You're a terrible mother, Derek said, his voice venomous. A good mother would be happy to help her son on his wedding day, would be honored to be part of such an important moment. But you're too selfish, too bitter, too caught up in your own feelings to see that. Maybe? You're right, Derek, I said, and I felt tears streaming down my face. Maybe I am a terrible mother, because a good mother would have taught her son to be grateful, would have taught him that relationships are give and take, would have set boundaries, would have demanded respect. And I didn't do any of those things. I just gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left. And I let you become the kind of man who thinks he can ignore his mother for 3 years, and then call demanding money. So maybe I am a terrible mother, but you're not exactly a prize son either. Derek hung up without saying anything else, without any acknowledgement that maybe he was wrong, without any indication that he cared about me at all. And I sat there in my living room with my failing heart and my depleted savings and my phone in my hand, and I knew this was it. This was the end of whatever relationship Derek and I had once had. It was over, finished, done. And I was sad. But I was also relieved. Relieved. That I didn't have to pretend anymore. Didn't have to hope for something that was never going to happen. Didn't have to sacrifice for someone who would never appreciate it. 6 months later, I got very sick. My heart was failing faster than the doctors. Expected I was hospitalized, put on oxygen, given medications that made me tired and nauseous and confused. I was dying and I knew it, and I was ready. I was tired of fighting, tired of working, tired of hoping for a son who would never come, tired of living in a world where the person I loved most couldn't even pretend to care about me. The hospital called Derek. They had to. He was my next of kin, my emergency contact, the only family I had left, and they told him his mother was dying. Told him he needed to come if he wanted to say goodbye. He came 3 days later, 3 days of me lying in that hospital bed, drifting in and out of consciousness. 3 days of nurses asking if my son was coming. 3 days of me wondering if he would show up at all, and when he finally walked into my room, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, harder. His face had lines around his eyes and mouth that hadn't been there before. He looked successful in his expensive suit and designer watch, but he also looked tired, looked like life hadn't been as kind to him as he had expected. "Mom," he said, standing at the foot of my bed, his hands in his pockets. "Derek," I said, my voice weak, raspy from the oxygen tube. "You came." "Of course I came," he said. But his tone was defensive, like he was already preparing to justify why it had taken him 3 days. "The hospital said you were dying." "I am," I said simply. "The doctors say I have maybe a week, maybe less. My heart is giving out." Derek nodded, but didn't come closer, didn't reach for my hand, didn't show any emotion. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Tell you what?" "That you were sick, that your heart was failing. You've been dealing with this for 3 years and you never said anything." "Would it have mattered?" I asked. "Would you have called? Would you have visited? Would you have cared?" "That's not fair," Derek said. You chose not to tell me. You can't blame me for not being there when you didn't give me the chance. Derek, I said, tired of this. Tired of making excuses for him. Tired of pretending. I gave you every chance. I gave you 3 years of chances every day. You didn't call. Was a chance every birthday. You forgot. Was a chance every holiday you spent without even sending a text was a chance, and you didn't take any of them. So no, I didn't tell you. I was sick because I knew you wouldn't care. I would have cared, Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction. Would you? I asked. Or would you have seen it as an inconvenience? Would you have resented having to visit? Would you have calculated how much time you could spare from your busy life to sit with your dying mother? This isn't fair, Derek said again, and I could see tears in his eyes, but I didn't know if they were tears of genuine emotion or just tears of guilt. You're making me out to be this terrible person. But I'm not. I've been busy. I've had my own life, my own problems. And that's fine, Derek. I said, you're allowed to have your own life, but you're not allowed to have your own life and still expect me to be your bank account. You're not allowed to ignore me for years and then show up demanding money. You're not allowed to treat me like I don't matter and then get upset when I treat you the same way. Is that what this is? Derek asked, and now there was anger in his voice. Revenge. You're dying and you're using it as an opportunity to make me feel guilty to punish me. No, Derek, I said, I'm not trying to punish you. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm telling you how your actions have affected me, how your choices have hurt me. And if that makes you feel guilty, that's on you, not me. What do you want from me? Derek asked, spreading his hands. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry, that I've been a bad son? Fine, I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? No, I said. That's not what I want to hear because you don't mean it. You're not sorry, Derek. You're just saying what you think I want to hear so you can feel better about yourself, so you can tell yourself you did the right thing in my final days. But you don't actually mean it. You don't actually regret how you've treated me. You just regret that there are consequences. Derek stood there for a long moment, just looking at me, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. Could see him trying to figure out what to say, how to respond, how to make this situation work in his favor. Did you ever love me? He asked finally, and his voice was small, childlike. Did you ever actually love me, or was I just an obligation? Burden you had to bear, Derek, I said, and my heart broke all over again. I have loved you every single day of your life. I loved you when you were born, and I held you in my arms for the first time. I loved you when your father died, and you cried yourself to sleep every night for months. I loved you through every milestone, every achievement, every failure. I loved you when you were a baby and a child and a teenager and a young man, and I still love you now. Even though you've given me every reason not to, I have always loved you. That was never the question. The question is, do you love me? Because love isn't just a feeling. Derek, love is action. Love is sacrifice. Love is showing up. Love is respecting and appreciating and valuing someone. And you haven't done any of those things. I do love you, Derek said. I know I haven't shown it. I know I've been selfish. I know I've taken you for granted. But I do love you, Mom. I do. I want to believe you, Derek, I said. I really do. But words are easy. Actions are hard, and your actions have told me for years that you don't value me, that you don't appreciate me, that you only see me as someone who can give you things. So what do we do? Derek asked. How do I fix this? How do I prove to you that I'm sorry? You can't, I said gently. It's too late, Derek. I'm dying. I have days, maybe a week. If I'm lucky, there's no time to fix this. No time to rebuild what we've lost. No time for you to prove anything. There has to be something, Derek said. And now he was crying, real tears streaming down his face. There has to be some way to make this right. There isn't, I said. All we can do now is be honest with each other, really honest, for the first time in years. So I'm going to ask you something, and I want the truth. Not what you think I want to hear, not what makes you look good. The truth. Okay, Derek said. When you think about me, when you remember your childhood, what do you feel? Do you feel grateful? Do you feel appreciation? Do you remember the sacrifices I made, or do you just remember feeling like you deserved everything you got, like it was owed to you? Derek was quiet for a long time, and I could see him struggling, could see him debating whether to tell me what I wanted to hear, or the truth. Finally, he spoke. I remember feeling like I didn't have a choice, like my childhood was decided for me, like you made all these sacrifices, and I was supposed to be grateful, but I didn't ask for any of it. I didn't ask for Dad to die. I didn't ask to be poor. I didn't ask for you to work 3 jobs. I just wanted a normal childhood with a normal family, and instead I got you exhausted and stressed and barely there, and I was supposed to be grateful for that. His words hurt more than any physical pain my failing heart could produce. But I appreciated the honesty, appreciated that he was finally being real with me. So you do resent me. I said, you resent me for raising you the way I did. I don't know if resent is the right word, Derek said. I felt guilty all the time. Guilty that you were so tired. Guilty that you didn't have a life. Guilty that everything you did was for me, and I didn't want that responsibility. I didn't want to feel like I owed you my whole life, just because you chose to have me, chose to keep me after Dad died. I see, I said, and I did. I finally understood Derek's perspective, understood why he had become the man he was. It didn't excuse his behavior, didn't make it okay, but I understood it. Derek, do you know why I worked 3 jobs, why I sacrificed everything, why I gave up my own life? To give me a better life, he said mechanically, like he was reciting something he'd heard 1,000 times. Yes, I said. But do you know why I wanted to give you a better life? Because that's what parents do. Derek said, no. I said, I mean, yes, that's part of it, but that's not all of it. I worked 3 jobs and sacrificed everything because I loved you, because every time I looked at you, I saw Thomas, I saw the man I loved, the man I lost, and I saw this beautiful gift that he had left me, this living, breathing piece of him that I got to keep. And I wanted to honor Thomas's memory by raising you, right, by giving you every opportunity, by making sure his son had a good life. And yes, it was hard. And yes, I was tired. And yes, I gave up things. But Derek, I did it willingly. I did it gladly, because loving you wasn't a burden. It was a privilege. And if you had ever told me you felt guilty, if you had ever said you didn't want me to sacrifice so much, I would have stopped. I would have found a different way. We could have had less. But maybe we would have had more time together. Maybe we would have had a better relationship. But you never said anything. You just took what I gave and let the resentment build, and I never knew. I didn't know how to tell you, Derek said. Every time I tried to bring it up, you would just smile and say it was fine that you didn't. Mine that it was all for me, and I didn't know how to say that I wished you would. Mine that I wished you would have your own life, your own interests, your own identity beyond being my mother. And so, when you became an adult, I said, when you had the chance to have a different relationship with me, one where we were equals, where I wasn't sacrificing for you, you chose to keep taking. You chose to keep expecting me to give, because that's all you had ever known. That's all our relationship had ever been. I guess so, Derek said. I never thought about it like that, but yeah, I guess that's what happened. Derek, I said, I need to tell you something about my will. His head snapped up, and I saw something in his eyes, something calculating, something that made my heart hurt even more. What about it? He asked, trying to sound casual. I've left you $1, I said, watching his face. Everything else is going to charity. The silence in the room was deafening. Derek just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't find words. You what? He finally managed, I'm leaving everything to charity. I repeated, scholarships for children of single parents, support groups, for widows programs that help struggling families. People who will appreciate it, people who need it, people who won't take it for granted. Because of one argument, Derek said, his voice rising. Because I said one thing in anger years ago, you're disinheriting me. No, Derek, I said. Not because of one argument, because of 3 years of silence, because of decades of taking me for granted, because you told me you didn't owe me anything. So I'm giving you exactly what you deserve, exactly what you said you owed. Me nothing. You can't do this, Derek said. And now he was angry, really angry. I'm your son. I'm your only child. That money should be mine. Why, I asked. Why should it be yours? What have you done to deserve it? Have you been a good son? Have you shown me love and respect and appreciation? Have you maintained a relationship with me? Have you been there for me the way I was there for you? I'm here now, Derek said desperately. I came, didn't I? I'm here at your deathbed. I came to say goodbye. You came 3 days after they called you, I said. You came because you had to, because it would look bad if you didn't. You came out of obligation, not love. And Derek, I'm tired of being someone's obligation. I'm tired of being taken for granted. I'm tired of giving to someone who doesn't appreciate it. So yes, I'm leaving everything to charity, and I'm at peace with that decision. This is unbelievable, Derek said, pacing the room now. You're being vindictive. You're being cruel. You're using your will as a weapon to punish me. No, Derek. I said, I'm using my will to make sure my assets go where they'll be valued, where they'll make a difference, where they'll help people who actually need help, not someone who's made it clear he doesn't need me, doesn't value me, doesn't think he owes me anything. I need that money, Derek said, and there it was, the truth, the real reason he was here. Jennifer and I are trying to buy a house. We're trying to start a family. I was counting on that. Inheritance to help us. Then you should have treated me better, I said simply. You should have called. You should have visited. You should have been a son instead of just an heir. It's too late to change the will, isn't it? Derek asked. And I could see him calculating, trying to figure out if he could somehow charm me or guilt me into changing my mind. Yes, I said, it's too late. Everything is in order, everything is filed and witnessed and notarized, and even if it wasn't Derek, I wouldn't. Change it, because this isn't about punishing you. This is about finally putting my needs first. This is about making sure that when I'm gone, my legacy is helping people, not enabling someone who's never learned to appreciate what he has. Derek stood there for a long moment, and I watched emotions flicker across his face. Anger, disbelief, calculation. And then finally, something that looked like acceptance. I should go, he said. Finally. I need to tell Jennifer. I need to figure out what we're going to do now. Derek, wait. I said, before you go, I need you to know something. I need you to know that, despite everything, despite all the hurt and disappointment and betrayal, I still love you. I will always love you because you're my son, and that will never change. But loving you doesn't mean enabling you, doesn't mean sacrificing myself anymore, doesn't mean accepting less than I deserve. And I hope someday you'll understand that. I hope someday you'll look back on this and realize that I did this not to hurt you, but to teach you one final lesson. The lesson I should have taught you years ago, that actions have consequences, that relationships require effort, and that love without respect is meaningless. I don't know what to say, Derek said. And he looked lost, looked like the little boy he used to be, the one who would crawl into my bed after nightmares, the one who would hold my hand when we crossed the street, the one who told me I was the best mommy in the whole world. And I wanted to comfort him, wanted to take it all back, wanted to tell him everything would be okay, but I couldn't, because it wouldn't be okay. It couldn't be okay. Not until Derek learned, not until he grew, not until he understood. You don't have to say anything, I told him. Just go live your life, take care of Jennifer, start your family, and maybe try to be better, try to appreciate what you have, try to value the people who love you before it's too late. Derek nodded and walked toward the door, But before he left, he turned back. "Mom," he said, "I really am sorry. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I'm sorry for not appreciating you. I'm sorry for everything." "I know you are, Derek," I said. "I just wish you had been sorry sooner." Left, and I never saw him again. I died 4 days later, surrounded by nurses and friends from church. But not my son, not Derek. He didn't come back, didn't call, didn't try to see me one last time, and I made my peace with that. Made my peace with the fact that I would die alone, that my son wouldn't be there to hold my hand, to say goodbye, to tell me he loved me. One last time, I made peace with it, because I had spent my whole life sacrificing my needs for Derek's, and I wasn't going to spend my last days doing the same. I deserved better. I deserved to die with dignity. To die knowing that I had done the right thing, to die with no regrets, and I did. I died at peace with my decision, at peace with my life, at peace with everything. My funeral was small, intimate, just the people who had actually been in my life. In my final years, my friends from church, from the hospital, from my art class, from my book club, people who had valued me, who had appreciated me, who had shown up, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Derek was there. He sat in the back, didn't speak to anyone, didn't participate in the service, just sat there with Jennifer looking uncomfortable, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. And when the service was over, when everyone was filing out, he approached James Morrison, my lawyer. "I need to talk to you about my mother's will," Derek said. "Of course," James said. "Why don't you come by my office tomorrow morning?" "Can't we just do this now?" Derek asked. "I need to know what she left me, what I'm inheriting." "We can discuss it tomorrow," James said firmly. "This isn't the time or place." The next morning, Derek and Jennifer went to James's office, sat across from his desk, and waited while James pulled out my will. "Your mother was very specific about her wishes," James said. "She wanted to make sure there was no ambiguity, no room for misinterpretation." "Just tell me what I'm getting," Derek said impatiently. James looked at him for a long moment, and I like to imagine there was disappointment in that look. Disappointment that this young man couldn't even pretend to grieve properly, couldn't even wait until his mother was in the ground before demanding his inheritance. "Your mother left you $1, James said. "The rest of her estate, approximately $240,000, is being divided among various charities." The silence in the room was absolute. Derek just stared at James, his face going through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, anger. $1. He finally managed, "She left me $1. "Yes," James said, "along with this letter." He handed Derek an envelope with my handwriting on it. Derek opened it with shaking hands and read, "My dearest Derek, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're finally learning what I decided years ago, when you told me you didn't owe me anything. I want you to know that I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this to teach you. I did this because sometimes the only way people learn is through loss, through consequences, through having to face the reality of their actions for years. You took me for granted. You took my money, my time, my love, and you never once showed appreciation, never once showed gratitude, never once treated me like I mattered. And when I finally stood up for myself, when I finally said no, you cut me out of your life for 3 years. And then when you needed something, when you wanted money for your wedding, you came back and you expected me to give it to you. Expected me to forget the years of silence and neglect, expected me to put your needs above my own. One more time, and I couldn't do it. Derek, I couldn't keep sacrificing for someone who didn't value those sacrifices. I couldn't keep giving to someone who only took. So I made a decision. I decided that when I died, my assets would go to people who would appreciate them, who would value them, who needed them. And Derek, you don't need my money. You've made that clear for years. You've managed fine without me. You've built a life and a career, and you're about to start a family, and you don't need your mother's money to do any of that. What you needed was to learn that actions have consequences, that relationships require effort, that love without respect is meaningless. And if my death and this will teach you those lessons, then my final act as your mother will have been successful. I want you to know that I loved you. Derek, I loved you every single day of your life. I loved you when you were easy to love and when you were hard to love. I loved you when you appreciated me, and when you took me for granted, I loved you. When you called and when you didn't, I loved you always. And that love never wavered, never diminished, never stopped. But loving you didn't mean I had to accept how you treated me. Didn't mean I had to sacrifice myself on the altar of your entitlement. Didn't mean I had to enable your behavior by continuing to give without ever receiving. I loved you enough to let you experience the natural consequences of your choices. I loved you enough to teach you this final lesson. Even though I knew it would hurt, even though I knew you would be angry, even though I knew you might hate me for it. Because, Derek, sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is let their child fail, let them struggle, let them learn. I hope you use this experience to become better. I hope you learn from this. I hope you treat Jennifer better than you treated me. I hope you raise your children to be grateful and appreciative and respectful. I hope you build relationships based on mutual love and respect, and not just on what you can get from people. I hope you look back on your relationship with me and feel regret, not because I want you to suffer, but because regret means growth, means understanding, means you've learned. And if you can't do any of that, if you can't learn from this, if all you feel is anger and resentment, then at least the charities I've chosen will benefit. At least my money will go to helping people who need it, who will use it to better their lives, to get educations, to support their families, to build futures, and that brings me peace. That makes my decision worthwhile. I forgive you, Derek, for all of it, for the years of taking me for granted, for the silence, for the demands, for not being the son I hoped you would be. I forgive you because holding on to anger and resentment only hurts me, and I don't want to spend my final moments on earth angry. I want to spend them at peace, and I am at peace. I'm at peace with my life, with my choices, with my decision regarding my will. I'm at peace with everything. I hope you find peace too. Derek, I hope you find happiness. I hope you find fulfillment. I hope you find love, real love, the kind that's based on mutual respect and appreciation and gratitude. I hope you find all of those things. And I hope that when you do, you'll think of me. You'll remember the lessons I tried to teach you, and you'll finally understand why I made the choices I made. Goodbye, my son. I will always love you, even though you'll never read these words without knowing what you lost. Even though my final act as your mother was to show you that love has limits, that sacrifice has boundaries, that even unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional enabling. Take care of yourself. Take care of Jennifer. Take care of the family you're about to build, and maybe be better than you were with me. All my love always and forever, Mom. Derek sat there with the letter in his hands, tears streaming down his face, and Jennifer, who had been sitting quietly beside him, put her hand on his arm. Derek, she said softly, "Are you okay?" She was right. Derek said, his voice breaking, "About all of it. I did take her for granted. I did treat her terribly. I did expect her to give. And give without ever giving anything back. And now she's gone, and I can't fix it. I can't apologize. I can't make it right." "No," Jennifer said. "You can't, but you can learn from it. You can be better going forward. You can make sure you don't make the same mistakes with other people." "What kind of son does this make me?" Derek asked, looking at James. "What kind of person treats their mother like this and then expects an inheritance?" "The kind who needs to learn," James said, not unkindly. "The kind who needs to grow, the kind who your mother loved enough to teach one final lesson." "I don't want the dollar," Derek said. "I don't deserve it. Donate it to charity with everything else." "Are you sure?" James asked. "I'm sure," Derek said. "It's the least I can do. It's the only thing I can do to honor her, to show that maybe, just maybe, I finally learned." James nodded and made a note, and Derek and Jennifer left the office, left with no inheritance, no money, nothing but a letter and a lesson, and the knowledge that Derek had lost something far more valuable than $240,000. He had lost his mother, not to death, though that too, but to his own actions, his own choices, his own inability to see what he had until it was gone. 6 months later, Jennifer and Derek had their first child, a baby girl. They named her Mary, after me. And Derek called James to tell him, "I want you to know." Derek said that every time I look at my daughter, I think about my mother. I think about everything she did for me, everything she sacrificed, and I'm trying to be better. Jennifer and I are trying to raise Mary to be grateful, to be appreciative, to understand that love is action, not just words. Your mother would be proud, James said. I hope so. Derek said, I really hope so, because I failed her in life, but I'm going to make damn sure I don't fail her in death. I'm going to make sure her sacrifice meant something. I'm going to make sure her lessons weren't wasted. I'm going to be the man she tried to raise me to be, even if it took losing her for me to finally understand what that meant. And maybe that's all any parent can hope for, that eventually somehow their children will learn, will grow, will become the people they were meant to be, even if it takes tragedy, even if it takes loss, even if it takes being written out of a will to finally understand. I don't know if Derek really changed, if he really learned I wasn't alive to see it, but I hope did. I hope my death meant something. I hope my final lesson stuck. I hope that when Derek looks at his daughter, he sees me, he remembers me, he honors me by being better, by doing better, by understanding that love without respect is nothing, that sacrifice without appreciation is meaningless, that relationships require effort from both sides. My name was Mary Catherine Jenkins. I raised my son alone after my husband died. I worked 3 jobs. I sacrificed everything I gave until there was nothing left. And when my son told me he didn't owe me anything, I smiled, and I left him exactly that, in my will, $1 and a lesson. And if I could do it all over again, if I could go back and change things, I wouldn't change a single thing, because Derek needed to learn, and I needed to teach. And sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is let their child face the consequences of their actions, is let them feel the weight of their choices, is let them lose what they took for granted. So, if you're watching this, and you have a parent who sacrificed for you, who gave you everything, who worked themselves to exhaustion to give you opportunities, call them, visit them, tell them you love them, show them you appreciate them. Don't wait, don't assume they'll always be there. Don't take them for granted, because one day they'll be gone. And all you'll have left is regret, and no amount of money, no inheritance, no material possession can fill the hole left by a parent you never properly appreciated. If you're a parent watching this, and you have a child who takes you for granted, who expects everything and gives nothing, who treats you like an ATM and not a person, know that it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say no. It's okay to demand respect. It's okay to protect yourself, even from your own children, especially from your own children, because enabling them doesn't help them. It doesn't teach them. It doesn't prepare them for life. It just makes them worse. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them face consequences, is let them struggle, is let them learn that actions have consequences, that relationships require effort, that love without respect is meaningless. My son said he didn't owe me anything. So I smiled and left him exactly that in my will. And it was the hardest thing I ever did, and it was the right thing. It was the only thing, and I hope that wherever I am now, wherever Thomas is, I hope he's proud. I hope he understands. I hope he knows that I tried to raise our son, right? And maybe I failed in some ways, but I succeeded in the end. I taught Derek the lesson he needed to learn, even if it cost me everything, even if it meant dying alone, even if it meant our last conversation was full of anger and hurt and disappointment. It was worth it, Because Derek learned, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any parent can ask for that. Their child eventually somehow finally learns. Did this story break your heart? Have you ever had a child or family member who took you for granted? Have you ever been told that your sacrifices were just what parents are supposed to do, as if your love and effort meant nothing? I want to hear your stories in the comments below because this is such a common, painful experience. Parents who give everything and children who expect everything without gratitude or appreciation. Have you ever had to set boundaries with an entitled child? Have you ever been disinherited or considered changing your will because of how you were treated? Share your experience because someone watching this right now might be struggling with the same decision, might be wondering if they're wrong to demand respect from their own children. And your comment could help them see they're not alone. And if this video made you think about your own relationship with your parents or your children, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about family dynamics, entitlement, and the painful decisions we have to make to protect ourselves. There's a whole playlist of family drama stories on my channel. Click the video on your screen right now to watch about a mother who got a call from the hospital saying, "Your husband's here with his wife," but she was at home. Trust me, these stories will make you see family relationships in a whole new way. See you in the comments, and remember, it's never too late to show appreciation to the people who sacrificed for you, but it might be too late sooner than you think. Call your parents, thank them, show them you value them, before all you have left is regret and a letter you'll never be able to respond to. Stay grateful out there, everyone.